What if the DCEU was actually good? What if James Gunn rewrote the DCEU? I don't mean rebooted the DC cinematic universe like he's doing now. I mean, what if he went through each existing DCEU movie and just did it again? Would he abandon the cynical, gritty tone and go for something more lighthearted and more comic accurate? Maybe, I don't know. But here's how I would have redone the DCEU movies if I was the one in charge. Let's start with Man of Steel. Let's try and make this stuff a little less linear and cut out the gratuitous Kryptonian disaster movie in the beginning. Instead, let's start small and build up to that scene. Let's start in Kansas. A small busted up truck drives out of downtown Smallville and heads towards the fields. The Kents have a short but spirited conversation, something light and endearing, so we feel like these are sweet, likable people. Suddenly, a flash of light, a streak of flame in the air, and something whooshes past their car. They go up to it to find a baby, a happy, cooing cutie, and their hearts immediately melt. They look at each other knowingly, and we cut to the title. The idea of introducing us to Superman through Lois Lane's investigations is a pretty solid idea. We can be in the Arctic with all the military personnel trying to find the spaceship, and maybe we can have a scene where she's having a meal with all the army people, including the scientist and Clark sitting in the room as well, listening in. She starts to tell the story of her tracking down this mysterious figure who's been helping people around the country. That's when we can see those clips of Clark from the movie where he's saving those people from the oil rig. The following scenes can be the same, but with the outcomes a little different to showcase Clark's gentle nature. So, like, he climbs ashore and sees the clothesline, and instead of just stealing the clothes outright, because Clark is literally too virtuous to do that, you could show him actually going up to the door of the house and politely asking the family for some clothes. It can be like a cutesy, kind of awkward scene that can endear us to the character. The family can pity him and give him a job at the bar. Then there's the scene of him working at the bar where he defends the waitress who's being harassed, and in that scene, instead of him being angrily silent then randomly trashing the dude's truck, which Clark would never do, we can have Clark try to reason with the guy, saying stuff like, "Why are you bothering the nice lady? She's clearly not interested." And the man, in true toxic male fashion, can try to punch Clark in the face, which obviously has no effect on Clark, but the man breaks his hand. Then Clark leaves, never to be seen again. You could cut back to Lois, kinda eyeing Clark in the canteen, indicating that she can tell from his body language that he's being suspicious, alluding to her being a good investigator and having good instincts. Then we can have the scene where he goes to the ship, she follows him, he turns on the ship and talks to the AI of his father, which is where we can have a shorter version of the original opening scene in Krypton. See, I kept it. I don't hate these movies, I just want to make them work. We can show Jor-El arguing with the council, going to his wife, downloading the codex and sending Clark away in a quick montage, with Jor-El explaining everything in voiceover, and then when Zod shows up to thwart them, that's when it can become a proper full scene. All that can play out as it is in the movie, to cement Zod's position as a villain. And I mean, Michael Shannon absolutely owns this character. So why wouldn't we just sit back and watch him revel in the villainy? The film can be as it is all the way till him getting to the Phantom Zone and the destruction of Krypton. Then, Lois gets shot by the ship and Clark saves her, leaves and learns to fly, which is a great scene. She follows him to Smallville, where she finds the guy from the school bus, and when she's questioning him, then we can have the school bus flashback. Because timing the flashback in accordance with Lois's investigations can actually give the whole thing a structure, and it also avoids repeating information, because otherwise, we first see the flashback, then we get the same information again when Lois does her investigation. Then she meets Clark, he explains his side of the story, and she agrees not to tell his secret. Here we have the flashback of Clark's dad's death. But I want to change this. The original scene is absolutely ridiculous. The idea that they drove up to a tornado, ran from it, then Clark's dad went back to get the dog but didn't send Clark because that would reveal his powers is so random. Like, if it's normal for Jonathan Kent to run back for the dog, why can't Clark do it? He's younger and is generally faster and stronger as a young person. No one would think twice. It's such a random thing to sacrifice yourself for. Instead, I think it's much more powerful if Jonathan Kent is dying of something that Superman cannot help with at all, like old age or heart disease or something. Something that leaves Clark truly helpless. And as he's dying, maybe he makes Clark promise to help others as best as he can, but not blame himself for those he can't help. because he can't save everyone. Do you see what I'm doing here? I'm trying to cement his character as a hero and a good person. So far the film has been kind of light and straightforward. Not much crazy action or anything, and in general I think the look should reflect that. The colors can be mostly bright and calm, but now at the turning point, I think the colors could shift to the metallic blues of the original movie. Because now we're stepping into a horror thriller. We have that great scene where Zod takes over the world's TVs and broadcasts his truly scary message demanding that Kal-El be sent to him. We can have all the stuff where he turns himself into the military and is a little sassy to them, and all this can be the same as the movie. Zod can come and take both him and Lois up to his ship and they can have their scary interactions. Zod can make his intentions clear and we can have all that inventive visual imagery, and Lois can wreak havoc with the help of AI Jor-El. Obviously, the biggest criticism the film receives is the massive wanton destruction that takes place in the final battle. And you know, I see it. It's very uncharacteristic of Superman to put so many people's lives in danger by having a punching match in such a public space. But here's the problem. We kind of need the destruction to make the next film happen. So let's figure out a way to make this work while keeping it true to Superman's character. Let's go back to when Lois is speaking to Jor-El. Maybe he can tell her that somewhere in the world there is a place where the Kryptonians can be weakened, somewhere the sun's powers are drained. Meteors that arrive from Krypton along with the big ship in the Arctic. See, I am setting up kryptonite in this movie because it plays a huge role in the next movie, so I think I'm justified here. Then, when Zod deploys the world engines, let's flip those. Instead of Clark going to the ocean to destroy that one, he goes to the one in Metropolis. Because first, it makes sense that he would go where the people are, because he's got to make sure the people survive. I really want a scene where he flies some people safely away from the range of the world engine before flying into it. This way, conflicting opinions can arise. There is actual justification of him being seen as a hero, while some people believe he's the reason for all the destruction. I don't hate the original way Zod dies, which is that Clark has no choice but to kill him. It's a cool idea, but it's too grim a note for me to introduce Superman in the world. I understand that there is a value in him understanding that it's too great a cost to kill people because he has experienced it firsthand, but I also feel like Superman is wise enough to know the value of life without having had to kill first. Also, if he's strong enough to snap someone's neck, he's strong enough to aim his head somewhere else anyway. They create the portal and suck everyone but Zod into the Phantom Zone, and Superman catches Lois as she's falling out of the plane, and as he's taking her to safety, he can say something like he needs to get Zod out of the city, or he'll just be putting people at risk, and she can say that she knows a place he can take Zod. He kisses her, they have a cute moment, and he flies off. Zod and Superman fight. Supes can taunt Zod and take off, and Zod can give chase. And he leads him to the Arctic, where there is a bed of kryptonite meteors. And as they get closer, Superman hits the ground, losing his flight. So does Zod. And as their powers drain, they fight just like normal people, just two buff dudes duking it out. And it can feel especially brutal as they become more vulnerable because of the kryptonite, and they start to bruise and bleed. As they fight, they talk. Superman tries to appeal to Zod's better nature, saying he understands what he's going through, but Krypton is dead and he has to accept that and give himself up, atone for his mistakes. It's not too late. And Zod can be like, I was bred for this. I was born only to save Krypton, and because of you, the last chance to save it is gone. So I will have my revenge, and once you're dead, I'll kill this world too. And as they get weaker and weaker, Superman lands the final blow. Zod trips on a cliff and falls into a ravine and gets skewered by a jagged meteorite sticking out of the ground and dies. Superman falls to his knees and cries, alone, mourning the death of the only other person from his home planet. The rest of the film can end as it is. He has his little moment with the military trying to gain their trust, he reminisces his childhood with his mom, and he joins the Daily Planet as Clark Kent. And that's that.
Up next is Batman v Superman.
A lot of this movie totally works as it is. It just needs a little bit of retooling to get it just right. So let's get to it. You have to open with Bruce Wayne just running through the falling debris of Metropolis. All this is just fantastic and really works in setting up Batman's motivation. After this, we have the scene in the Indian Ocean where the divers discover the kryptonite while Lois Lane arrives in Kenya. She meets Jimmy Olsen. I know that this doesn't make the movie better, but I really don't like that Jimmy Olsen gets such an unceremonious death. I don't know what Zack Snyder is trying to prove here. Just let this be some other dude. Anyway, we see the Russian mercenary, Lois gets taken hostage and Superman bursts through the ceiling. So in the movie, Superman straight up flies that dude through the wall of the building. The impact and whiplash, not to mention the fact that Superman straight up breaks the sound barrier every time he flies, would for sure have killed that dude. And just because Lois took her hands off the guy doesn't mean that he wasn't still holding on to her. She would totally get pulled with him. I think it would be so cool if instead we kicked into slow motion and showed Superman zooming up to the dude, just easily prying Lois off him, giving him the slightest nudge so that when we jump back into real time, he just goes flying and gets knocked into the wall, totally getting knocked out. He takes Lois and flies off, and they can have a moment. Meanwhile, the Russian mercenary and his gang kill and burn the entire village. The senator calls Superman to come to the capital to defend himself against allegations that he killed the village, and Batman is straight up branding criminals in Gotham. Then we cut to the scene where we introduce Lex Luthor. I know a lot of people criticize Jesse Eisenberg's performance, but I honestly think it generally works in this movie. He's a big old cliche, but he does it well, and actually sells himself as a rich, bratty kid using his dad's money and big brain to gain power. The only thing I'd change, which is a holdover from the last movie I pitched, is that we show him trying to convince the senator to give him access to the kryptonite that the government grabbed from the North Pole, where Zod was killed. Because they've been doing tests and Lex wants more to learn about what would be able to hurt Superman as a deterrent. In my version, maybe the government doesn't have hands on the kryptonite they found in the Indian Ocean yet. That way, Lex is able to steal it easier, and the whole thing has a bit of momentum. Story is pretty straightforward for a bit, so we can keep it as it is. Batman does his sleuthing, looking for the white Portuguese, leading him to Lex's fundraiser. Clark and Bruce meet, they have a bit of verbal sparring. Bruce tries to steal Lex's info from his drives, which gets intercepted and stolen by Diana instead. Bruce meets Diana, who returns the drive and reveals that it has a photo of her in it that she wants but can't retrieve. Bruce returns to the Batcave, starts to decrypt the drive, he dreams about Superman, has a little premonition about the parademons, and then gets visited by the Flash from the future. This scene is so goddamn cool that I don't even care if it doesn't pay off in Flashpoint. It's been the Batman show for quite some time now, so let's cut to Lois as she tries to investigate the bullet from the war zone, finding out that it was manufactured by LexCorp. Alfred and Bruce argue about Bruce wanting to kill Superman, with Alfred trying to explain that they shouldn't be enemies, but Bruce asserting that Superman cannot be trusted because he's simply too powerful, which is a good motivation. Batman tries to steal the kryptonite and is met by Superman. Here, Superman should talk a little more than what he says in the movie. Just a little bit of talking about the fact that Batman used to be a symbol, an idea, connecting it to his own symbol, saying that it's a symbol of hope. But now Batman is a symbol of fear and death. Batman should retort, saying that Superman doesn't give hope, Superman is a sign of despair and oncoming doom. And Batman can say that he has learned that those that don't learn to stay down need to be put down. Superman wants Batman to hang up the cape because if it comes to it, Superman won't be the one going down. Just a little more antagonizing, but with more purpose, and also trying to show their personality traits and differences in philosophies a little bit. Reasons to fight each other. Superman goes to the Senate hearing and the building explodes. Clark, grieved from his failure to save the people in the Capitol building, prepares to leave Metropolis. Martha Kent is kidnapped. Lois figures out that the bomb was lined with lead, which is why Superman couldn't find it, but before she can do anything, she's nabbed by Lex. Lex uses her to lure Superman out and blackmails him with Martha's life to go and kill Batman. Clark should have a moment here where he realizes that this has all been Lex's plan, even the downward spiral of Batman. I want to give Lex a better monologue here because in the movie he's kind of just rambling about gods and people, but I really want to showcase the psyche of Lex Luthor. I want Lex to talk about how Clark came down from the sky and just joined the humans. In America no less, where so many people try to come as refugees and are turned away. Superman has powers beyond human imagining and no one can come close to him, making him the single most powerful person in the world. He caused so much destruction in Metropolis last year, and he can be yelling this over Clark's protest that he was trying to protect everyone and it was Zod who caused the destruction. And Lex reiterates that Zod would never have come here if it wasn't for Clark hiding among the people. And don't forget, in this movie, Superman doesn't don the cape until he's forced to come out into the open by Zod. So Lex is kind of justified calling Clark a hypocrite here. All the people who died, their blood is on Superman's hands, and who will hold him responsible? Who will he answer to? According to Lex, he will answer to the one human who dares to defy him. He'll answer to Batman. And one will kill the other. Either way, the world will know who Superman really is. He sends Superman off, Lois tells Clark everything, and he heads to Gotham to try and convince Batman to help him. When Superman and Batman finally confront each other, it simply takes too long for them to start fighting. And Superman could totally have explained everything by then. I think the fight should be a lot dirtier than that. I think even before Superman gets to land at the fight venue, Batman should immediately jump into action, attacking him as hard as he can and not give him even a moment to talk. The following fight scene is fucking fantastic, and I wouldn't change even a moment of it. I love how as the kryptonite wears off and Superman gets stronger and stronger, Batman's punches sound like he's hitting metal. It's a great touch. Eventually, as Batman has the upper hand and is about to kill Superman, instead of him just saying save Martha, because who says that? Like, which son would refer to his mom by name, especially in his dying moment? It's not like Superman ever actually calls his mother Martha. He should say save my mother, and that should be enough to throw Batman off guard. And then maybe if you still want to keep it, Superman can say save Martha, which confuses Batman to all hell. Lois then arrives and explains that Martha is his mother, and I would add a little bit more from Lois here, where she can explain everything about Clark, because he knows everything about him in the next movies anyway, so it helps humanize him in front of Batman, so he can realize that Superman isn't just some all-powerful god who stands above everyone, but just a boy from Kansas who wants to live among the people. Finally, now joining forces, Batman goes to save Martha, Superman goes to confront Lex. The rest of the movie is absolutely fine. I wouldn't change a thing. Lex releases Doomsday, Superman and Batman are joined by Wonder Woman, and they all fight. Eventually, Superman kills Doomsday using the kryptonite spear, sacrificing himself in the process. At the funeral, they all mourn Superman. Bruce and Diana start to discuss bringing together the other metahumans, and the movie ends.
You know where we're going next. It's time for Justice League.
First of all, no weird phone footage of Superman awkwardly talking to children at arm's length. Dude looks like he hates kids. Also, his wobbly, mushy CGI lip replacement, no. I'm not having it, and I'm certainly not opening my movie with it. Let's open with a typical Zack Snyder slow motion title sequence. Those things are beautiful. My biggest bone to pick with Joss Whedon's butchering of this movie has to be the changing of the color palette. I mean, you can't disrespect someone's work like that. These shots, these characters, these costume designs, they're meant to be seen in dark, cold, metallic colors. If you mess with that, the whole movie looks weird and wonky. Like Wonder Woman has this strange red lipstick on, Batman looks weird and cartoony with his furrowed eyebrows. I mean, let's step out of the animation for a second and look at this. Compare Joss Whedon's portrayal of Mera and Zack Snyder's. Look at how sharp and angular the Snyder version looks. That looks good, man. Why mess with that? Also, this is literally the movie that needs the typical Zack Snyder treatment. I mean, Superman is dead for God's sake. Batman is riddled with guilt that he couldn't help him, and the world is in a dark place. The Zack Snyder tone and grandeur would have been perfect for this movie. And this is the movie that got sliced up to hell by Mr. Whedon? That's just our luck. That's the most important thing. Let's keep the look that Snyder was going for. Let's cut the two nonsense opening sequences in the beginning that introduce Batman and Wonder Woman. The Batman scene is weird and tonally has no balance, and there's absolutely no need for there to be a whole scene where he tries to understand the parademons in the beginning, because all this gets explained later anyway, and in my version it has no purpose. I think a great way to start is with Batman slowly putting together the team. This is a good way to introduce new characters and give us information on what new threat might be coming. So first we meet Aquaman, and personally I would cut the "you talk to fish" joke, but keep Aquaman's incomprehension at the fact that Bruce dresses up like a bat. You've now flipped the script, and Aquaman has a bit of a leg up here. Anyway, Bruce talks about how Superman's death has led to a crazy rise in crime all over the world. There's all kinds of weird stuff happening, and he's afraid of another alien invasion. He tells Arthur Curry that he's trying to start a team, and Aquaman flips him off and jumps into the ocean. Then we can get the intro of Cyborg, then the intro of Barry Allen. Then Steppenwolf lands in Themyscira and steals the mother box. This action sequence is pretty good and would probably look that much better in Snyder's signature palette. The Amazons lose and light the warning fire, and that's when we see Diana. Diana goes to Bruce and tells him about the mother boxes and Steppenwolf. Bruce says he knew something was coming and that's why he's been tracking the other metahumans, and they set out to find them. Then we can cut to Lois Lane and Martha Kent talking. This is a nice idea, but the treatment is all wrong. First of all, why is Martha Kent unable to pay for her house? Shouldn't Bruce be helping with this? It makes sense. The dude should be riddled with guilt, and paying off her home in full, taking care of Martha, which was so important to him in the last movie, seems in character, right? She should mention that Clark's nice friend, the one with the cape, is helping her, referencing their brief interaction in BVS. Lois and Martha can comfort each other and take solace in each other's company. Bruce meets Barry Allen and convinces him to join the group. This scene is good on its own, and I'm okay with the Flash being comic relief, and it's great that he's a little neurotic and maybe even on the spectrum, but why is he the butt of the joke? I don't like that we're supposed to laugh at him because he doesn't understand social cues. I don't think that's something to laugh about. Sorry, but Barry Allen is smart. He can be wisecracking and sarcastic. He doesn't have to have a personal vendetta against Brunch. I mean, what a waste of screen time. Another inconsistency in the movie is Steppenwolf's power level. In some scenes, he's catching missiles out of the air, and then in some scenes, he can't even take a punch. In the bit in Atlantis where he steals the mother box, Steppenwolf seems decidedly weaker than the previous scene, and it's very annoying and doesn't set him up as that much of a threat. Instead of that, let's have Aquaman arrive at the spot of the mother box and already be too late. There's dead Atlanteans everywhere and Mera lays there wounded, and instead of having this weird contentious argument that they have in the movie, she recognizes him and tells him about Steppenwolf while he cradles her, showing that he cares for individual life even if he doesn't want to join Atlantis. She tells him that help is on the way and that he should go to the surface and stop the bad guy. Seeing the aftermath of Steppenwolf raises his level as a threat, and plus we don't have to listen to him practicing Shakespeare in the park. Cyborg joins the team and the four go to meet J. Jonah Jameson. Inspector Gordon. He tells them about the air vents and the team goes off to fight Steppenwolf. Here's where my film is going to diverge. If you've seen my previous pitches for Wonder Woman 1984, Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, you'll notice that I'm setting a few parameters while doing these videos. I'm not just making my ideal Justice League movie. That would be a totally different movie. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to experiment and see what are the most minimal adjustments that can be made to make these movies better. Now, so far in the last few pitches I've made, I haven't really changed the core plot, just elements of how scenes play out. But this movie has so much potential, but the end product is so sloppy and disappointing that I have no choice but to change it completely. The Justice League shows up to fight Steppenwolf and they put up a good fight, and it should play out similarly but with a few differences. None of this sexualization of Diana, this goofy Barry falling on her and it's awkward haha so funny, that is not happening. It's unnecessarily gratuitous. Anyway, Steppenwolf should get the last mother box and escape, smashing the place as he goes, and a wave of water comes at the League about to wipe them out when Aquaman shows up the last minute to save the day. Back in the Batcave, they're nursing their wounds and discussing what their next move should be. Cyborg knows that he just needs to get close to the mother boxes and he can try and foil their plans, but they'd need a significant amount of power to do that. Batman gets an alert from one of his many drones and sensors that someone is messing with Superman's grave. They freak out and head to Smallville. When they arrive at the graveyard, Superman's grave has been dug up. They see Steppenwolf with all three mother boxes entwined with each other. Steppenwolf taunts them for not knowing anything about anything but having the hubris to think they could defeat him. He talks to them about the fact that their greatest weapon, the Kryptonian, lays in a box. He talks about how primitive their technology is, not knowing the difference between dead and dormant. He reveals that Superman isn't dead. His vitals may show that his heart is not beating, but on a cellular level, he's alive. Superman steps out of the box, alive and bearded. This way, he gets to keep his mustache, and it's probably a lot easier to put a nice looking beard on him, and you wouldn't be thrown off every time his lip wobbles on the screen. Superman's eyes are glazed over. He's completely in the thrall of the mother boxes. He fights the Justice League and pummels them hard. That great scene with him and the Flash in slow motion happens, and he nearly kills Batman. Cyborg yells that they need to get to the mother boxes, and as he leaps for it, Steppenwolf grabs him and rips him apart. Now, Superman and Steppenwolf are fighting side by side against the League. The League is barely holding it together. The fight is desperate and claustrophobic, and it feels like they're about to lose. It's almost like a bait and switch, where it should feel like the ending of Avengers. Like you think they're gonna do this huge battle with a swarm of faceless demons, but we actually just end up in a much more contained fight with two very powerful entities, one of whom used to be an ally. So the stakes are raised that much more. Suddenly, mid-fight, Superman comes face to face with Martha Kent and Lois Lane, brought here by Alfred piloting the Batplane. Disoriented, Superman stumbles back. Batman draws his attention, and Superman tries to blast him with his heat vision. Batman jumps out of the way, and the lasers hit the mother boxes, which explode. Shockwave after shockwave erupts from the boxes, knocking Superman down. The League seizes their opportunity and works together in an impressive formation and kicks Steppenwolf into the mother boxes. And that's it. That's enough power to tip the balance. The boxes implode. Superman snaps out of it and jumps into action. He first saves Martha and Lois, then grabs everyone else and gets them far away to safety. He then flies back and finds Cyborg's upper half holding on for dear life. Cyborg tells him that they need to go to the center of the vortex, and they'll have a split second before they get pulled in and die, where they can find the boxes and separate them. Clark nods, and the two of them let the boxes pull them in. A big flash of white, and then silence. The Justice League runs back to the graveyard to find Superman, Cyborg, and the boxes strewn around the ground. They're alive. They did it. They all reunite. Superman thanks Batman for believing in him, and Batman thanks Alfred for bringing Lois and Martha. They go back to the Wayne Manor to build the new Justice League headquarters, and the movie ends.
Now let's try our hand at Suicide Squad.
So in the original movie, Amanda Waller is just making a rando-ass task force with no logic or forethought and no strategy of what kind of threat they're supposed to fight. It's just a free-for-all for no reason. Let's give her decisions some kind of reason. See, Amanda Waller is a bad person. Her code of ethics is super fucked up, but she's not an idiot. She knows what she's doing. So let's open with an Indiana Jones type scene where we see Rick Flag, his girlfriend, and Katana. This way we actually show Katana and Rick Flag as partners as opposed to just kind of mentioning it offhand randomly at the halfway point of the movie. They're going through an ancient tomb with booby traps and stuff to get to the Enchantress's heart, which is like in the center or something, so they can finally have some control over this insane force that's housing this poor archaeologist or whatever her job is. They get to the heart and they're about to take it when suddenly they hear a chattering sound and they turn to see a little toy jaw chattering towards them. Flag has a moment of realization. He pushes June out of the way and then the thing explodes, sending them all flying in different directions and the impact triggering the release of the Enchantress. But before she's able to do anything, the Joker walks into frame and grabs the heart, holds a knife to it and threatens the Enchantress with her life. She has no choice but to become his captive, and they leave, taunting Flag and Katana on their way up. Maybe even throw some jokes in there, like if Flag pulls out his gun, the Joker's goons quickly take them down, while the Joker makes a jab like never bring a gun to a knife fight. I would really like to see one movie where the Joker's murderous psychosis is juxtaposed with his love of goofy jokes. That shit is really scary and fun, and what makes the Joker a fun villain to watch. Make him tell some jokes, for God's sake. Maybe they even take Katana's sword for good measure and leave Rick Flag with a message for Amanda Waller that he's coming for her and he will rescue Harley, and then they get out of there leaving Flag and Katana for dead. Now, we've seen the two of them in action. The explanation of Enchantress's heart has happened, and we didn't have to watch a friggin' 10-minute presentation about it. And the Joker has a bigger role as one of the main antagonists of the film. I mean, if you have the Joker, he should be in the movie, right? And not just in flashbacks. Alright, now Amanda Waller has a reason to set up the task force the way she does. Also, let's cut out all the boring ass boardroom scenes. We all know that this lady does not care about having the proper clearance. The point is, she's unethical. Just have her do it all in black sites and under the books and stuff. It's more fun that way anyway. So, Rick Flags gets to Waller and is freaking out. She calms him down by introducing him to Task Force X. And here's where we get the intro to our main cast. We can keep the superhero cameos if we want, the Flash one is kind of fun. Another thing we need to focus on is the musical tracks. Not the background score, that's fine. The use of popular music. The theatrical Suicide Squad is like a jukebox that only plays the first 10 seconds of every song, just fucking one after the other. It's absolutely awful. In the first 5 minutes alone, we go from a hard rock song to a pop song to a hip hop song. I understand that they were probably trying to cash in on the Deadpool success, but Deadpool literally had like 3 songs total, and they were all hip hop. See, tonal consistency. We need some of that in this movie. Just pick a genre, pick a few songs to be your anthem, and then stick with it. Also, with Harley Quinn's intro, can we please get rid of the unnecessary sexualization of her? We all get it, she's very attractive. All these people are attractive, it's a movie. Let's instead highlight how crazy and fun-loving she is. Let's also make Killer Croc a little less of a stereotype. Just give him a little more personality than growling and occasionally saying something urban. Imagine me doing air quotes there. It's probably how the execs described him when they injected this character into the movie. Anyway, the story can be pretty straightforward at this point, with the squad heading through a really messed up city, fighting weird blob guys and eventually reaching Waller, pretty much the same as the theatrical movie. All the while, let's cut back and forth between this team and the Joker's team, where they discuss their plans, and we can reveal that the events of this movie are actually taking place in conjunction with the events of the Justice League. This is a plan that they slapped together when Joker heard that all the supers are going off to fight some big world-ending threat. So he decided to capitalize on their absence and wreak as much havoc as he can. Meanwhile, Harley can use her knowledge of the Joker and how he works to point out traps and lead the team through the most likely path he took to get to wherever they were going. This way, she really has a point in this movie, because otherwise she's completely useless. At least in the James Gunn sequel, she has missile launchers and shit. Here she is basically a baseball bat and a tiny gun. You can only spin kick people so much before they spin kick you back, you know? It's not ideal for me that Harley's importance in the film is defined by her relationship with the Joker, but since this is the first time we see Harley, I think it helps to have it be like this so that she can work towards extricating herself from the tangled, abusive relationship that this is. Harley's knowledge of the Joker can also be colored with stories of how he treats her bad. Like, each trap/path can be connected to a specific memory, which reveals how bad their relationship is, while her companions point out to her how messed up everything that she sees with rose-tinted glasses actually is. This way, they can all have moments to shine while also growing into a family quite organically. They have that scene where they all break up and Flag reveals that he loves June, and this is all happening for love, and everyone becomes friends and decides to work again. This is all fine. The scene with the bar, it's like the one place where they feel like humans. And I'm trying to have the whole movie have that energy, which is what all this Harley stuff is about. Anyway, in the end, they reach the final confrontation where it's revealed that the Enchantress has overpowered everyone and put them under her spell. She's led the goons to a museum where she recovers some kind of artifact. Turns out she's been manipulating them all along by visiting the Joker in his dreams. Her plan was to use the Joker to free her brother and make it seem like June was in danger to lure Waller and Flag to her. Then, with the help of her brother and these Joker goons, she'd get revenge on them all for imprisoning her. Maybe she mind controlled the Joker, maybe she convinced him by offering him untold riches or kill the Batman or powers. It doesn't really matter. The Joker is enough of a wild card that he'd pretty much go for anything. And when the squad confronts her, she offers each of them their heart's desire. She wakes the Joker to go convince Harley, who seems to fall for it for a second, but was actually just getting close to the Joker to get the heart, which she steals and then they destroy. That's when, in her dying breath, Enchantress calls on her brother, who arrives and mourns his sister's death and then turns to get revenge on them all. Finally, as a team, they all fight the monster and kill it. Katana takes her sword back from one of the goons and stabs it in the heart. They can all come together and celebrate their victory. Harley can realize that in the chaos, the Joker escaped without her, once again highlighting how bad their relationship is. The rest of the squad consoles her and they head back to prison with shorter sentences and special privileges and newfound friendships, and the movie ends. The mid-credits scene can still have the Joker rescuing Harley to show the cycle of abuse is ongoing, because now it really fits the whole movie tonally, and it even leads into the Birds of Prey movie.
I'm skipping the first Wonder Woman because it's basically a fine movie, but I'm definitely rewriting Wonder Woman 1984.
Firstly, let's cut out that nonsense opening scene in Themyscira. It's gratuitous, boring, and unnecessary. Plus, if we're cutting Cheetah out of the movie, this scene serves no purpose anyway. Instead of that, let's have a scene where Diana is taking a little excavation team and finding that awesome golden armor that she wears in the end of the movie. That way, we actually see her get it, and it's something earned, rather than something that's just already there in the office collecting dust while she tells us how she got it off screen. No, we want to see her excavate something cool. We want to see her do her job. Instead of the artifact going to Kristen Wiig, we just send it to Diana. She's in the Smithsonian, she works with antiquities, she can handle it. This way, her and Maxwell Lord are in direct contact with each other, and they can actually develop some antagonism between each other. Then, when he tries to steal the stone, the stakes are that much higher. The movie really does pick up once Maxwell Lord shows up and starts doing all his wishy stuff. So that can all be the same, although there are still some random logic jumps in the middle. Like when she's flying to fight Maxwell, she's flying in her regular Wonder Woman costume, but when she gets there, she's wearing the gold armor. Like what? When did she change? Did she go off course, go back to her office, then fly back to fight the bad guy? Why? She already had her powers back at this point, so there's absolutely no point in wasting time to go get the costume. I mean, the world is falling apart and you're doing a costume change? Instead, we can have all this stuff as she's losing her powers as a result of her wish for Steve to come back. Steve spends the whole movie trying to convince her to give him up, and she can make him stay back while she goes to confront Max, as she doesn't want him to get hurt. And then we can have a scene where he sits in her office in desperation, notices the armor, and has an idea. We then have the big final climax in the White House, because if we're gonna go there, why not do the big battle there instead of in a random ass broadcast station? Anyway, in the White House, you have her fighting all these government agents but trying not to harm them because it's not their fault, while at the same time really struggling as she loses more and more of her powers as Maxwell keeps gaining more and more power. Then Steve can show up with the armor, and maybe, just bear with me, he throws it at Diana and it forms around her like an Iron Man suit, and then she just like goes to town swatting the people out of the way. Bullets don't even mean anything. It's amazing. Then if you want to have a big boss battle, what if Maxwell just like grabs a guy and goes, hey, don't you wish that I could defeat Diana? Then he like has all these extra powers and the two of them can just duke it out, and he's too strong for her. So finally, in a desperate moment where maybe Lord is about to kill some innocent people, Steve implores her to do the right thing, and Diana, through tears of despair, finally gives in and renounces her wish and watches as Steve disappears. Suddenly, her powers restored, she's able to beat Maxwell like he's a fly on the wall. She wails on him, reducing him to a cowering baby, cornered, begging for his life. Wonder Woman walks up to him, puts her hands around his neck, and as she does this, he starts trying to manipulate her, saying that she gets a wish, she renounced her wish, so maybe she can make another. He can give her whatever she wants. And the dialogue can be something like, he says you can have whatever you want, and Wonder Woman goes, whatever I want? And almost makes you feel like she's considering it. And he's like, whatever you want, just wish it. And she's like, and in return you want me to spare your life? And he's like, yes, please, please. And she makes her wish, and she wishes that he never got the artifact in the first place. You see a moment where Maxwell realizes what's happened. She's made a clever wish, and she's set the terms for it, so he can't like monkey's paw his way out of this one. Time starts to reverse, the whole movie speeds backwards, and maybe it even looks like a VHS tape is rewinding. That way it justifies all the posters and the title and all this stylistic shit. 1984 makes sense now. And we plop right back to the moment where Maxwell was just about to steal the stone, and Diana shows up at the last moment, stops him, takes the stone. Maybe she puts it away in Themyscira, away from the greed of men. You can then have a scene where Lord is going to jail for dealing with black market antiquities, and as he's being taken away, he can have that interaction with his son that's in the movie, where he says he's just a loser and all he wants to do is make him proud, and his son reassures him that he doesn't need to make him proud because he already loves him. God, this kid is so nice. Then, if you want a fun twist ending, she can be attending that fundraiser where she turns a corner and sees Steve Trevor back from the dead, because since she went back in time, it undid her renouncing the wish. Oh, and maybe the mid-credit scene can be Diana and Steve living happily ever after, with her as a normal person having lost her powers and renouncing the Wonder Woman title. You can foreshadow the next movie by having either the Themysciran woman showing up at her doorstep saying that they need her and it's an emergency, or maybe it is Linda Carter showing up in the end saying, hey, can I have my suit back? Like, that would be cool. The Aquaman movie is passable, kinda nothing, and I've not got much to say about it, so we're skipping it. Let's finish out strong with The Flash. Let's cut the opening action sequence. First of all, the whole blobby CGI babies being saved via microwaves and whatnot is just so weird. Like, what is this choice? Why even go here? We're cutting it out. I know most superhero movies, especially these DC ones, love to open with a sequence of our hero being heroic. But it's always a scene that isn't related to anything and doesn't serve any purpose. Let's instead show scenes of Barry and Bruce working together, showcasing how Bruce has taken Barry under his wing and is kind of a father figure to him. If we're getting cameos by Alfred and Wonder Woman, why not do a nice montage that shows how Barry is getting on with the rest of the league? You can do all your fan service here. Diana and Barry can be fighting and subduing, I don't know, King Shark, who is trying to eat fish at the aquarium. You can even show Flash and Cyborg doing something cool, like stopping a runaway train or something. If we can't get that actor for reasons, you can put his helmet on. In between this montage, we can have a scene where Barry visits his father and sort of talks to him about the excitement of his discovery, which is the security cam footage that he's going to work with Bruce to fix. This way you can build expectations, and then when it turns out to be a dud, you can really hammer in the emotional devastation. Finally, you can actually show Bruce and Barry working together to clean up the security cam footage that might absolve his dad. See, this way you can show that Barry is capable and has a pretty good life, but this one thing makes him live in perpetual regret. Stuck in the past, he's unable to enjoy his present success. When the video reveals that his dad never looks up, thus not revealing his face, Barry is crestfallen and has a bit of a meltdown. See, actually playing this scene out as opposed to just having Barry say what happens works to show just how distraught he is and what a giant failure it feels like for him. He has a bit of a freak out, Bruce tries to console him, but he runs off. He runs so fast that he stumbles into the Chronodome and ends up going back in time. In this version, we get to our main inciting incident quickly and hit the ground running, entering the plot, aka the good part of the movie, that much faster. After this, the movie can proceed as usual. Barry talks to Bruce, who warns him of the perils of time travel. He meets Iris and gets inspired to go back and change a small detail. I really like the tomato can angle. It's a good, simple plot device that works well. I don't like what a loser they paint Barry out to be. I'm okay with showing that he's struggling to balance his job and superhero life, but does he really have to be treated with such utter disdain and malice? I don't like that the Flash is the butt of the joke in this movie. Let him be a little bit of a fun guy and actually be funny with jokes and performance rather than being a slapstick idiot that we have to laugh at. Anyway, I like all the stuff where he goes back and saves his mom with the can, confronts himself and tries to recreate the accident to give 2013 Barry powers and ends up losing his powers in the process. He then sees Zod, goes to find Batman and meets Michael Keaton. Now, it doesn't make any sense to me that Batman would know how the multiverse works. I get that he could know theories and stuff, but like, in the movie he gives such concrete answers, it's kinda crazy. I also don't get this manufactured conflict of people saying they won't help and then helping half a second later. It's so unnecessary. There's plenty of good character stuff there with their connections as people who lost their parent, and with Barry 2013 not knowing the truth, that we don't need random fake conflict for conflict's sake. Anyway, we go to Russia to rescue Superman and end up with Supergirl. I really like this version of Supergirl. Let's once again get rid of the fake out where she first says no and then yes just to stretch the runtime of the movie. Once back, they can have a heart-to-heart with Supergirl, who is ready to open up to Barry because he saved her. This is such a great opportunity to really contrast how things can be different based on your life, where Clark Kent fell in the arms of a loving family and grew up to be a very good person. You can show that Kara fell somewhere where she wasn't really wanted and became prey to the foster system and moved from home to home, not having a great time and kind of seeing the worst of humanity more than the best of humanity. And then eventually she found out who she was by going to the, finding her Kryptonian ship, her Fortress of Solitude and whatnot. When she gets there to get all her answers, she's captured by the Russians and taken away. So she doesn't really even get a chance to be Supergirl or something like that. That way the suit can be something that they build together. Anyway, she takes them to the Fortress of Solitude, the Kryptonian ship, where the onboard AI can explain the multiverse theory and can also diagnose that Barry hasn't actually lost his powers, just his connection to the Speed Force. And maybe the Kryptonian technology can be used in addition to Batman's kite to strike him with the lightning and give him his powers back. After this, the movie can go on as usual, with the fight with Zod and the deaths of Batman and Supergirl. On a side note, I did love how campy all the stuff with Batman was. Everything has a silly bat shape and it's super cute and funny. I wasn't a big fan of how the action worked with the Flash, and that's really funny to me considering that Zack Snyder already figured out how to do this shit well. And here they kinda undo everything. I didn't really quite get it.
Why do his feet not connect with the ground when he's running? In the Snyder version, at least, when he runs, it looks like he's actually touching something and pushing off. Here, you can see his foot hits the ground and the floor texture actually moves like 5 or 6 frames before the foot lifts off again. It just looks so cheap. I really like the eventual reveal that 2013 Barry goes crazy and keeps trying to mess with time, eventually turning into the corrupted speedster. I don't like that 2013 Barry is also there and sacrifices himself to stop the speedster. I know this is kind of a riff on the causal paradox, but it's also a hat on a hat. This feels like another attempt to stop a superhero from killing a bad guy. But hey, when you're your own worst enemy, is it really so bad to kill off your corruptions? I think you can literally get away with murder here. I think the two Barrys should duke it out in a brutal battle, maybe traveling through time as they go. We can use this opportunity to use the footage from older DCEU movies and superimpose our speedster battle in it. Like the main trio is fighting Doomsday in Batman vs Superman and the Flash's fight pops in and out. Same with the scene in the war from the first Wonder Woman. Maybe do a deep cut and show us a scene from Green Lantern. In an ideal world, it would be awesome to even get a present day performance from Ryan Reynolds, just for fun. And you know he'd agree to do it. Anyway, they can end up right at the moment before Barry saves his mother. Corrupted Flash taunts Barry and tries to plead with him to let him save her and save everyone and try again, when our Flash finally lets go of the past and kills him. The multiverse is no longer dying, Barry unsaves his mom, says goodbye and goes back to his present. His father is absolved because he moved the tomatoes, which I thought was kind of clever, and he meets the new George Clooney Bruce Wayne, and the movie ends, but his fucking tooth doesn't fall off. I mean, what is that? Anyway, for a little bonus, I decided to include the Green Lantern movie. Because why not? I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat this. The 2011 Ryan Reynolds Blake Lively DC superhero film is nothing short of a full-on disaster. It's forever gonna live in the minds of all comic book and movie fans as what not to do when making a superhero movie. I mean, it took me a month to finish this movie because I had to keep taking breaks in order to not completely die of boredom and frustration. It's kind of crazy that the movie is so sloppy and not fun considering it's directed by Martin Campbell, who made 2 Zorro movies and also Casino Royale, and say what you will, those movies are at least fun to watch. And also Blake Lively and Taika Waititi are in this movie and have no chemistry with Ryan Reynolds, who, by the way, Blake is married to. It's insane. Before jumping into the plot, let's deal with the problem with the visuals. This film suffers from truly terrible CGI and absolutely atrocious art choices. The decision to make the Green Lantern projections a weird mix of green smoke and real solid looking projections is completely baffling. Firstly, I don't understand why DC's live action films don't take a cue from the visual styles of the Bruce Timm animated shows. All those shows really had their shit together, and not only were they fun and good to look at, they're kind of the definitive look for a lot of the audience, whether they admit it or not. Instead of making the projections come out of smoke and look weirdly solid, let's just make them more 2D looking, like diagrams of the objects the lanterns are trying to approximate, and give them a really strong green glow, kinda like lightsabers. This way, we don't have to deal with the awful limitations of CGI at the time, and it can be aesthetically pleasing. Also, when the lanterns fly, there's a horrible green cloud that emanates from the back of them. I mean, it looks like they're farting. Who even approved this? It's completely ridiculous. Instead, let's give them a strong light trail like the Powerpuff Girls or the Tron light cycles. That kind of retro futurism would work really well for this movie. The CG characters don't look so bad in this movie, so they can stay as they are. Alright, with the visuals somewhat sorted, let's get into the story. First of all, let's get rid of the tedious prologue with Abin Sur droning on about what the lanterns are and who Parallax is. Nobody cares right now. The movie hasn't even started, and all this is going to be explained to Hal Jordan anyway when he gets inducted into the Green Lantern Corps, so why repeat this information? Let's streamline this shit and start our movie off with a bang. Abin Sur and a bunch of other lanterns are headed to a mission on a Star Trek style ship. We get some cool looking aliens and some fun banter between the lanterns. This way we see that this is a family. Abin Sur is the leader and their good guy is going to help people. They see a mysterious yellowish cloud in their way and it attacks their ship. The massacre that ensues is straight out of a horror film. Abin Sur tries to use his ring to stop the monster, but it's just pandemonium. He watches all his compatriots die, rushes to an escape pod just as he gets wounded by Parallax. He uses the last of his powers to blow up the ship and uses the distraction to escape in the pod and begins hurtling towards Earth. We cut to Hal Jordan already flying his plane trying to outsmart the drones. We show Blake and Taika in the comms trying to direct him. Hal is being cool and composed and beats the drone super easy, and just as he's about to fly back to the base, he feels the pull of green energy and Abin Sur's voice. He lands and gets confronted by Blake and Taika, and they're talking to him about his reckless flying, but Hal is kinda in a daze. He sort of brushes them off and leaves the base. He follows the green glow to the crash site and finds the dying Abin Sur. He gets the ring and the lantern. Taika, who has been following him, catches up and they have a fun little freakout session, and they leave before the authorities arrive. In space, we see the floating wreckage of Abin Sur's ship. There's dead crew members floating around and new lanterns are arriving to inspect the scene. Here, we're introduced to Sinestro. He figures out that Parallax has escaped and heads back to Oa. In the original movie, Sinestro learns of Parallax in a long drawn-out conversation with Abin Sur before he dies, and it's just so boring. This way, we're doing more show than tell and letting our characters discover information rather than it being spoon-fed to them. It just leads to a more streamlined storytelling, which is more interesting to watch. Back at Hal's home, the two friends are trying to figure out how the lantern works and having fun banter about it when there's a knock at the door. It's Blake, and she's come to apologize for how they left things at the base. They pretend they're not home and she speaks to him through the door, kind of like that one scene in Spider-Verse. She's sort of pouring her heart out to him, revealing her insecurities and hoping that they can be close again like when they were kids. In the original movie, they have such an antagonistic relationship that you don't see any of the sparks fly between them, and then suddenly they're in love, and it absolutely doesn't work. This way we're showing that it's more friends who have drifted apart rather than actual enemies. While she's leaving, Taika tries to get him to go after her, but that's when the lantern glows, pulls Hal into a trance as he recites the oath and gets pulled in. The lantern flies off into space and heads to Oa. The stuff in Oa is not bad at all, so I'd leave it mostly as it is. Hal wakes up and has a fish out of water moment. The lanterns tell him all about the organization and he starts his training. We show Hal struggling with his training, unsure and insecure of himself and unable to work with others in a team. Sinestro shows up and antagonizes him for being human, and then gives a big speech about Parallax. It's then revealed that Parallax is headed to Earth, and Hal freaks out. He decides to leave Oa to save his planet. The other lanterns, they ignore his pleas for help, and he leaves anyway. I don't want to put any of the reveal that Parallax used to be a lantern and Sinestro's want to use the power of fear. It's too soon for all this. I think this should be left for a later movie. Build up to that. There's a horrible party scene where a helicopter crashes and Green Lantern saves everyone, and my god, it's just a bad scene. Let's cut it. I'm also basically cutting Hector Hammond as a villain. Let's instead show Hal Jordan returning to Earth, trying to reconcile with Blake Lively's character, and they have a bit of a connection. Anyway, he tells her and Taika about Parallax, and they decide to help him hone his powers. Then we get some fun scenes of the Green Lantern being a superhero, saving people from a burning building or stopping a mugging. Hero stuff. They come closer as friends and Hal learns to trust others and work in a team. Character growth. Finally, Parallax arrives at Earth. There's a bunch of natural disasters because of it. Parallax entering the atmosphere causes earthquakes and avalanches and floods. He's trying to be everywhere at once. Blake Lively nearly gets crushed by a falling tree when a green beam suddenly stops it. She looks up to see another Green Lantern.
Maybe they've got green helmets on so we don't have to deal with a huge fallout of the world discovering that aliens exist. The other lanterns have arrived to help Hal. They work together and save people. They push the tidal waves back and Hal heads off to fight Parallax. The fight with Parallax is fine, but it would be nice for him to have some friends with him. Because the Green Lantern is a core, it's not always one person working by themselves. Also, Hal Jordan is not like fully trained yet. He's not good enough to defeat Parallax, but them working together, working as a team is kind of the theme of this movie. So let's have Sinestro and the alien that woke him up and the one who trained him all help fight Parallax. They all work together to push Parallax into the sun. Sinestro apologizes for underestimating humans. Hal goes back to Earth and kisses Blake and it all ends happily. The post-credits scene should show Amanda Waller leading Hector Hammond to the dead body of Abin Sur, and when he touches it, Hammond's eyes glow yellow and we hear Parallax's evil laugh and the movie ends. See what I mean? The movie has too many things going on. I've cut it all out and made it a simple, straightforward story with a single threat and a story about a guy who's unsure of himself and unable to work in a team, learning to trust himself and others in the process. This one really is just a fun exercise. At the end of the day, it's ultimately a good thing that this movie is what it is because it's such a well for other movies to make fun of. I mean, some of the highlights of Ryan Reynolds' other movies are jokes at this movie's expense. Never change, Green Lantern. Never change. I hope you like my attempt to improve this movie. Please let me know what you think in the comments.